Hi guys. Today we're going to talk about mysteries again, but this time the absolute protagonist of the video will be just one number, a simple two-digit number, 23. In 2007, the movie Number 23 by director Joel Schumacher, starring Jim Carrey, was released in theaters. A feature film that wasn't particularly successful but still got people talking. At the center of its plot is the belief that many of the events that have marked our history are characterized by and somehow connected to the number 23. A novel titled Number 23 accidentally ends up in the hands of Walter Sparrow, an ordinary man who doesn't really like to read. Since it's a gift from his wife, he decides to give it a look. And the deeper he gets into the book, the more he realizes that his life closely mirrors that of the main character. A life marked by the number 23, which will drag him into a dark future. It was this very film that awakened in the collective consciousness the idea that 23 might be a magical number, a figure different from the others, singular and with great mystical significance. But the origin of this belief is not to be found in this film. It had been talked about long before. But where does it come from? How much truth is there in this? These are the questions I will try to answer today. So here is the inexplicable enigma of the number 23. As we were saying, Walter, the protagonist of number 23, finds that the number 23 obsessively appears in his life through simple arithmetic. He was born at 11/12, 11 plus 12 equals 23, and met his wife on September 14. 14 plus 9 equals 23. He is 23 years old. From here comes the obsessive search for other connections with this number, which leads him to discover coincidences that in this case are not fictitious, but refer to real phenomena and historical facts. Parents contribute to their child's DNA with 23 chromosomes each. The 23rd chromosome is the one that determines sex. Blood takes 23 seconds to circulate throughout the body. Julius Caesar was stabbed 23 times when he was assassinated. President Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963. If we add them together, we get 23. The atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. He's still 23. The September 11, 2001 attack also results in 23. The Titanic sank on April 15, 1912. 23. William Shakespeare was born on April 23, 1564, and died on April 23, 1616. The sum is still 23. The Latin alphabet is made up of 23 letters. Euclid's geometry has 23 axioms, and the Earth has a tilt of 23.5 degrees. The Grand Masters of the Templar Order were 23. The Egyptian and Sumerian calendars start on July 23. The Maya believed that the world would end on December 23, 2012. And even the sum of 20 plus 1 plus 2 results in 23. Mars's nearest moon is 23,500,100 kilometers from its center. 2/3 is 0.666, the number of the beast. The most well-known psalm in the Bible is number 23. The Lord is my shepherd. There are 23 fallen angels, and so on. It can't be denied that all these supposed coincidences, which would turn out to be many more upon closer analysis, can only make us think that the number 23 truly holds a magical power. But where does this belief come from? The origin of the enigma of the number 23 can be traced back to the science fiction trilogy titled Illuminatus by writers Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea, which deals with the theme of conspiracy theories. It also contains the mystery of the number 23. In an article published by Wilson in 1977 titled The 23 Phenomenon, the writer explains that he first heard about this topic from another American writer. One of the main representatives of the Beat generation, William Burroughs, met the captain of a ship called Tanger who told him that he had sailed the seas for 23 years without any incident, not even the smallest one. On that very day, the captain set out on yet another sea voyage, but he had an accident that caused the death of all the passengers, including himself. That night, there was also news of a plane crash. The pilot's name was Clark, and the flight was number 23. From that moment on, Burrows began to report dates and events that were somehow connected to the number 23. In one of his later essays, titled 23 Ski-Doo, mentioned many other events related to this number. For example, that of the gangster Schultz, who had killed his hitman Vincent Cole on 23rd Street in New York when he was 23 years old. Schultz was later murdered on October 23rd. The man accused of his murder was 23 years old when he committed the crime. In prison, he served 23 years in prison before being granted parole. In short, given the facts, 23 seems to be a cursed number or possess some strange power. Following these stories and the movie, there are many people who claim to be literally haunted by this number in their lives. They see it everywhere, as if it were some kind of mental virus. But those who know me are aware that I always try, as much as possible, to find a logical explanation for seemingly inexplicable events. So, how could all this be explained? One possible explanation could be found in our tendency to always look for patterns in our lives, even when faced with purely random events. This tendency even has a name, which is apophenia, and it can be defined as follows: the recognition of patterns or connections in random or meaningless data, or, to put it better, an unjustified perception of connections. The term was coined in 1958 by Klaus Conrad. To better understand this definition, it's enough to think that when an event we consider special happens in our life, suddenly we get the impression that it occurs more often around us. It's not that it didn't happen before, it's just that our attention becomes more sensitive to that particular event or phenomenon. For example, when we buy a new car, we'll notice that many other people have bought that same model. When we're expecting a baby, we'll notice the large number of pregnant women around us, and so on. However, it's our subjective observation that makes ordinary events seem exceptional, which distorts reality, so to speak, and it makes us think that something strange or magical is happening around us. Burrows and Wilson operated in the same way. Theirs was simply an almost obsessive search for connections with this number, made easier by the fact that we are constantly surrounded by all kinds of numbers. Just think about how many dates are linked to particular historical events, or the endless amount of numbers that are mentioned in a newscast or in a newspaper. If, on top of this, we start adding up the individual digits that make up the dates, the connection happens even more often. Once we've fallen into the trap of the puzzle, we'll always look for connections with the number we're focusing on. We'll see it everywhere, and we'll get the impression that everything is related to it and not to other numbers we come across every day. In short, our attention focuses on that number and ignores everything that has nothing to do with it. If we considered any other number, don't you think we could get this same result? Don't you think that no matter which number we consider, we would be able to find dates and numbers that make it seem magical? At this point, it's your turn. What do you think about the studies that have been done on the number 23? Is it really possible that it holds a power that escapes our logic? Or do you agree with me when I talk about apophenia and simple coincidences? Let me know in a comment. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, or share it with your friends. See you in the next video, l'inspiegabile.